So the music system in the game is the most extensive Fmod event that's being used. It consists of a main song that plays throughout most of the game. However, the items that can spawn into your booth, some of them can be radios, so we decided that depending on the effect on the specific radio, which is one of the three effects being blessed, cosmic, or floral, that a different song would play corresponding to each effect. So typically during the game, there will be the main song just playing normally, like so. And then whenever a radio is spawned, depending on which effect is on the radio, it will be switched to one of these other tracks. So if it was the blessed one, it would be switched to this music A, so that would be like this. And the way these work is depending on which value for music switcher, it will transition to the specific music that is needed to play. Additionally, there's another parameter, music progress, which goes from 0 to 100, and you can see it has a slow fade in. And what this will do, as you can see here, is when it increases, it will fade between the different lead tracks within a specific song. So this is tied to the point system in the game, so you can get a certain number of points per day, and depending on your total percentage of the total amount of points that you can get in that day, this is assigned to the music progress percentage. So the closer you are to doing better, then the music will gradually fade to better melodies of the song. So just with the basic music, this would sound like this. And so we do that with all of the songs as well, so that it's all consistent across the main song and the various radio songs. And the way that's working is we just have a fade depending on the percentage parameter between the tracks. So you can see audio 1 stays at 0 dB for 0%, and then as it increases to around 25%, we fade that out and then fade in track 2, and so on. We also have more parameters for whenever a radio song is playing. Instead of just having the music change, we wanted it to sound like it was actually coming from the radios that were being spawned in the scene. So we have this isRadio parameter from 0 to 1, and what this does is it adds a white noise parameter. It fades that into -12 by default, and then that's affected later on. But we also have a radio return that the master sends based on the isRadio parameter. And this return has EQ, distortion, gain, and flanger, just to give it more of a radio sound. So just to play the jazz song, if we have that going, we can fade up isRadio and it'll start to sound like how it will actually sound in the game. And lastly, we also have this condition parameter, which is tied to the radios. So there is this item in the game which you could spawn a bomb, and the idea was you couldn't move or bang the bomb into items quickly because it would blow up and start to damage them. So we had the idea of multiple conditions that items could be in. So 0 would be they were fine condition, and then that would go to 1 where they had been exploded and they were slightly damaged, and then 2 where they were heavily damaged, and then if they exploded again they would disappear. So what we wanted to do was actually make the audio sound like it was damaged along with the visuals of the radio. So the way we did that was the white noise fades to a higher level according to the condition parameter, but we also modulated the various effects on the radio return, so that it also gave the effect of sounding damaged. So if I just play the radio, and then I will increase the condition parameter, and you'll be able to see and hear the difference that the condition makes. So one of the diversifiers for this year's Global Game Jam was called Spinal Tap, and the requirement was that you would have different volume sliders for specific different effects. So we decided to go with this route, and we have different volume sliders for the music, and specifically the radio music as well, the NPC losers, the item collisions, specific bomb item, and the UI. So the way that we've hooked this up is through VCAs. So on each slider, on the onValueChanged, we are calling a function from this VCA controller script here. And we pass along the specific name of our VCA in fmod and the slider component. And then this set volume is the function that's triggered, and we just go to our VCA controller and set the volume to the value that we receive. So in fmod, these are the VCAs, and they each hold the specific rooted groups that are in those VCAs. And then when a value changes there, a value will change here, and it's a really simple, easy way to handle different volume changes within your game. So another diversifier for this year was called Wilhelm, and it was required that you have all the dialogue in your game be through screaming. So we decided to jump into this one, and we have a lot of screams in this game. The game has randomly generated NPCs, so we decided that all their voices should be somewhat randomly generated as well. And the way that we approached this was that we have 6 different voices that could be played. And these are actually technically 2 different voices. It's myself and someone else that was on our team. And then these are duplicated again and just pitched either up or down. So there's 2 voices, and then there's 2 lower versions and 2 higher versions for a total of 6. And within each of those voices, we have 5 different vocal recordings, and these are essentially 5 different variances within that one voice. So there's a lot of different possibilities that can be randomly assigned whenever an NPC loads in. It will first choose between one of 6 voices, and then it will choose between one of 5 recordings. Within each of these recordings, we then have different vocal stages, depending on what stage the vocal of the NPC is. So we have an intro, and then we have answers to the questions that you ask, a negative, neutral, positive, or perfect reaction. Then if you mess up giving an NPC the correct item, they can return, and when they return they have a specific sound, a specific vocal, and then another specific negative or neutral response to that returned item. So there's a lot of variance that happens. The way it works is that this NPC audio script is attached to each NPC spawns, and then on their awake we assign a random voice for them. We create that instance and then assign a random vocal recording for them. And then in our dialogue system script, we have numerous locations within here for deciding what stage of vocal the NPC should say. And then each of these assigns a different int to this set vocal stage, which then assigns our audio script to set the vocal stage to the correct one, just by assigning that vocal stage parameter and playing the sound. So for example, if an NPC spawns and he's assigned voice 4, then this is the pool of audio that NPC can use. We then assign a specific recording. So if we get recording 3, which would be the 4th recording, then this is the only column that NPC will pull sounds from. So when they first turn up, they will have their intro, and then they will have specific answers if you ask them questions. And then let's say you gave them the totally wrong item so that they had the negative response. And then they would leave, and if they came back later, their vocal stage would be return. And they would sound like this. And then if you got it wrong again, then their return negative would be this. And then they would leave, and that would be the end of that NPC, and then the next one would be randomly generated again.